Good evening. Today we're covering Module 5 and we are going to be talking about adolescence. We're going to go over what you need to do for this week. Let me know if you have any questions. Email me and let me know. Hope you had a wonderful week. Let me know if you have any questions about Module 4. So we're moving on from middle childhood to adolescence, and then next week we'll do early adulthood. So we're continuing with Erickson's stages of development. And so I'm going to have you watch the lectures, videos, and also a Fed Up documentary that is talking about health for both children and teenagers and the epidemic of obesity and diabetes and nutrition. So Fed Up is a documentary. If you can watch that as well as the videos, and then go ahead and email me your opinion about the Fed Up documentary and answer the 2 questions about the lectures that we will be talking about. One is Erickson's stage for adolescence. What is the major component of this stage that needs to be accomplished? The psychological component. Every stage in life, according to Erickson, fork in the road. You can go in the healthy direction or in the direction that leads to issues, and it affects the foundation that later on then becomes your default. So now you have to work at it. It's not your natural state and healthy state psychologically, and so at each stage there could be a choice between the two. And so we're going to talk about what is the major psychological component for adolescence, and then also we're going to go over the second is some of the issues that teenagers go through in adolescence, thinking back that you can share about your own experience if you feel comfortable, or if you work with teenagers, if you have teenagers, or just in general, what are your thoughts? And the question will be about contraception in adolescence. And so we'll go over that. And so you go ahead and email me those responses, and that counts for your attendance for today. So make sure you look at the dates that I need to receive that by in order for you to get credit for attendance, as we don't have class today. And so I want to go over first what is due for this week. So you'll be watching video on adolescence identity versus role confusion. So that's the answer according to Erickson. The main component of the stage is, who am I? So it's not that you have all the answers, it's the foundation. That's why this time is so important, because it's the foundation of, if you do it right, like a house, you build upon it. We talked about attachment early on. So again, each stage builds upon each stage. And this one is about taking the time, being allowed to take the time in the family that you're with, in the culture that you're in, environment that you're in, that you're encouraged to figure out what you like. What do you, politics, what you value, religion, work, instead of being told this is the job career you're going to do, this you're going to get married or not married, you're going to go to this school because people in our family have done it, it's passed down, it's what's expected of you. Even though it might be a great thing, maybe that's not for you. And parents mean well, we have good intentions, we want the best for our kids, hopefully most parents. It could be their own issues being projected onto you, but it can be cultural, societal expectations, from gender identity to sexual orientation safely. And so it's not about drug experimentation or things like that. It's more about finding out, what do I like, what do I not like, what do I believe, not believe, apart from my parents, apart from my society, my culture. Just as much as you're able to know how much of it is influenced by culture and family, it's just taking the time, being allowed the freedom. And in some cultures, unfortunately, in some families, you're not allowed that freedom to explore. You're told this is what's best, this is what our family believes, this is what we value, and that's what you're going to believe, and this is who you're going to be, and you're told. And so we'll talk about also Marsha's identity stages that you can go through, the healthy ones and not so healthy, that figuring out, because all of this leads to the next stage according to Erickson, which is you can isolate yourself, or intimacy. So you need to know who you are in order to open yourself up to somebody else and let them know who you are. But if you don't know who you are, how can you be with somebody and let them in to see who you are if you're still confused? So it's not that you have all the answers during adolescence, it's that during this time you're taking the time to lay the foundation, and then you build upon that for the rest of your life. And you know that because early adulthood, you're still trying to figure things out, sometimes in your 40s and 50s still, but you do have a basic foundational sense of who I am, what I believe, in the direction. The more you do the work during this time, you're allowed to do the work during this time, the better the outcome. Because if you just go along, I had a client, for example, that he wanted to do something else that his parents expected him to be, and his family, and there was a family of lawyers. They had all been lawyers all their their life, and they expected him to be too. And so he just grew up thinking, okay, that's what I'm going to be. I'm going to be part of Dad's law firm and continue. And he did great in school, sports, went on to college. Never told anybody what he really wanted to do because he felt, I don't want to. And his parents were very loving, but they thought this was what was best for him, and he didn't want to disappoint them. And so he didn't say anything, got married, had kids, became a lawyer, very successful, doing environmental law, and was getting depressed because that wasn't his heart's desire, and he still was grieving over what he really wanted to do. He never told his wife, never told his parents. He started eating, gaining weight, not wanting to go to work and wanting to stay home. And so his wife was like, what's going on? And he said, I feel selfish telling you this. And finally told her. He said, when I was growing up in high school, my dream was to be a firefighter. And I never told anybody because I knew what was expected of me, to be a lawyer, just like everyone in my family, and to be part of the business. And he enjoyed law school and was very good at it, but inside his dream. And so he was at the age where cut off for a firefighter. And thank goodness he had a very supportive wife that said, well, I don't want you depressed. I don't want you doing something that you don't love, that your heart's not in it. This year's your last year. You can go for it. And I don't know if she thought he was going to make it or not, but she said, try to go for it. And he did. He got in, and he quit his job as a lawyer, became a firefighter, and has been doing it for a long time now, and is so happy. And so his parents at first were disappointed, but they love him and want him to be happy. They saw how unhappy he was, and thank goodness that they were supportive in him just choosing what is really himself, what's authentically himself. He would have saved a lot of time and money and energy if he would have been able to be honest. So expectations can be very imprisoning, in that we don't want to disappoint, especially our parents or society or those that love us. Thank goodness he had a supportive wife. He went to therapy to get, answers of what was going on and getting to the root of it. And it all started. Adolescence, was not allowed to be authentically himself and become what he wanted to be all along. So again, this is the time. Lay down the foundation, because otherwise you build upon that. And later, as a therapist, I work with people who go through midlife crises, and they say, I just became what everybody else wanted me to become. I got married because it was expected. I had kids because it was expected. But I don't even know who I am. I hear that a lot in therapy. I don't even know who I am because I never took the time to find out what I like, what I don't like, what I believe. I just believed what. And again, parents, we want our kids to believe, especially religious views, what we feel is best for them or what's true. So it's very hard for parents to say, oh, I'm going to allow my teenagers to explore different faiths and religions because you feel like some are not right. And so it worries and scares us. But I do say that later in therapy, I see people who say, I just believe that because my parents believed it and said we had to, but that's not what I truly believe. And then I took the time later on in life, and this felt more real to me, and this is the path. But then because I didn't get to choose it earlier, it's like it kind of snowballs on a lot of other issues. So identity versus role confusion. And you're going to be watching that. That's Erickson's 5th stage of development in adolescence. And then this week you're also going to have a discussion, so an individual discussion on case study of adolescent behavior, and exploring issues that teenagers go through, any stage, but we're going to look specifically this week on adolescence, eating disorder. I worked at a psychiatric hospital, a whole team. We had psychiatric nurses, we had psychiatrists, psychologists, recreational therapists, art therapists, nutritionists, all working together. And we had some teenagers there with eating disorders. And also, you can choose two of these to talk about in your discussion. Teen pregnancy. One of the questions that I'm going to ask you to give your opinion is, what are your thoughts about public school nurses having and giving out condoms to teenagers at the school? Yes, no, why? What are your thoughts on that? If we had class, we would take some time, break you up into groups of 3, take a few minutes each, and then come back and share with the class. What are your thoughts? What was your group's thoughts about having public school giving out contraception to adolescents? And I've worked most of my career with adolescents. I'm mostly working with adults in my private practice, but I worked a lot with teenagers. I love it. I enjoy it. It's a lot harder to raise your own teenagers than to actually do therapy with other people's teenagers. I was able to connect with them. I also help parents that were part of sending their kids to a wilderness program to help the parents know how to transition their kids back from a wilderness program. And so I have a lot of experience, and so some of the issues I want you to be aware of, that, for example, as a 7th and 8th grade counselor, I saw already kids going through pregnancy early on, so it can be even earlier than adolescence. But I would hear kids in high schools talking about having sex in the bushes, in their cars, under bridges, and that they didn't want to buy condoms because they're too expensive, or they were embarrassed to buy them. And so a lot of the kids would end up pregnant. And so what is the role of parents, family, schools, if any, if you feel? So please send that in. You're going to send in a paragraph with your opinion of the Fed Up documentary, as well as answering these 2 questions. Also, the issue of suicide and substance abuse in adolescence and brain development, which we're going to talk about in class today. Part of the lecture, hormonal changes for the male and female brain. Not gender identity, but just biological male, biological female. And you also have Marcia's identity status, your reflective journal, your knowledge check to do this week. So make sure you have that all in by the due date. And you pick a song. This is one of my favorite exercises and homework assignments to grade, to see what is the song that best represents your high school experience. And also looking at Marcia's state of adolescence identity as you're looking for careers. What am I going to do with my life? It's just a start, and you can change later on. People do have changes nowadays, even more than before, as society changes, as you change. It's okay, but you have a sense. That's the important thing, a foundational sense of who you are. You can go through the 4 stages, diffuse, you're not even thinking about who am I, you're not working at it. No crisis, no commitment. You haven't chosen a sense of who you are, what you want to do in life, what you like, don't like. Foreclosed is like foreclosure. I pick what society says, I pick what my parents say, that's what I'm going to do. Again, you're committed, but no crisis because you didn't even take the time. As I was talking about before, ideally you go through moratorium, which is you take the time, you're exploring, the exploration time. There might be a crisis, like identity crisis, but it's okay, it's healthy. And then achievement, where you are committed to a sense of, this is who I am, I feel, this is what I want to do in life. And it's okay to take some time. Like according to Erickson, it can be even into the early 20s. And all of life is always evolving and changing psychologically. But again, if you do it right, you set a right foundation of your identity, then you build upon that like a house. You want a safe, strong foundation to hold everything else that you build on top of that. So song, like it could be, like for me, maybe girls just want to have fun in high school. Cyndi Lauper. I don't know if that's mine, but that just came to mind as I was thinking. And then you're going to do your reflective journal. that is about social media. What are your thoughts about social media and the impact on adolescents today? So what are the effects on mental health, considering things as cyberbullying, FOMO, fear of missing out, negative body image, sleep disturbances, remembering that teenagers need at least 8 to 9 hours of sleep. It affects their concentration, it affects their mood, it affects their weight, it affects their growth. And so that's really important. The screen from the phones can affect their melatonin levels, as well as creating stress from comparing and filters and other people. Like when I was growing up, no phones, it was just the people around you. You can still have those issues, bullying and so forth, but now it opened it up to wider. And research has already shown that it does have a negative impact. Addiction, you can also be addicted to social media, increases dopamine in the brain, and comparing yourself and self-esteem. So that is the assignment for this week.